Good morning, everybody. It's my favorite day. You know how much I love a good Monday. Even more when I misplaced my sunglasses, but that's okay. So, how was your weekend? I hope it was a wonderful one. If you are a father, or if you have a father, which is everyone, whether still with us or not, I hope you enjoyed reliving some beautiful memories with your dad. I hope you have beautiful memories with your dad. Closing for cleaning, that is okay. I thought it was going to say we didn't have soda, which could be a problem. If I say soda, I'm sounding like a Yankee. Coke, because we know whether it's Coke, whether it's Dr. Pepper, whether it's Pepsi, it's Coke. Okay, so.
How can I help you?
He's a little busy. Large Diet Coke, please.
108 first window.
You got it, thanks. So, I had a wonderful weekend, and now it is a beautiful Monday, the kind of day I just love, where it rained overnight. I didn't hear it. But you know, you come out and the roads are all wet, and yet the sky is just bright, bright blue, and everything is just gleaming and gorgeous. So that's a good sign that we're going to have a beautiful week, and I'm so happy to be sharing it with you guys. This morning, I spent some time in a podcast, vlog, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter if you're listening or watching these days, of one of my favorite people ever, which is Coach Tom Ferry. And those of you who have seen Tom on the internet, he is simply amazing. He's my ultimate mentor and coach, and I'm happy to say friend. Tom is a genius of practicality and getting to the point, and the man just does not know how to waste a moment of your time. He truly doesn't. He's incredible. Now, within the coaching system, of course, you have your own coaches, and we have been very lucky to have had Eileen Rivera, who is a tremendous creative, and currently they have us working with Mike Shum, who is the most practical, down-to-earth person you'd ever meet, and just great at keeping you focused on what it is that you need to do in your business. And that's what I want to talk about this morning. Of course, I talk generally about realtors because that's my specialty, and that's one of the things that I love, but it all applies, I find, in just about any field. So this morning I'm watching Coach Tom, and I'm watching for the fourth time his 12-minute video on reviving your business, jump-starting things you need to do this week to move the needle in your business. And so after that, which I've asked my team to watch, so then after that I just let it go ahead and go to the next upcoming episode because they're all so good. And Tom brings up a great point. He said, when you're not achieving what you want to be doing, or you're doing great but you want to be doing even better, there's two reasons. Two things. Number one, you don't have the education and or tools to do what you need to do. Number two, you aren't taking the right actions. So our goal for our team is that number one is never going to be the case. That's very important to us. There you go. So we have a lot of training. We have minimum 2 training sessions a week. We have our Monday morning sales meeting, which also includes training topics. And then we have our Wednesday morning sessions, which are devoted specifically to training, role play, scripts, things to help empower people to empower their clients. And training is beyond huge. I was really gratified this past week to have one of our more experienced agents come in and say, you know, we sometimes take for granted the training that we get here. She said, we really don't even realize how important it is until... She goes, I was dealing with an agent from another team, very nice person, this past week, who meant well, but by not having the training and the tools, she said, had not prepared her client in a way that could have avoided what almost cost a deal. It was able to be saved, but it got very tricky there for a minute because they hadn't been trained around the wording. Much of life is training people, setting expectations. Let's even use that word. You're not training your clients so much. You're not trying to fool them. You're not trying to set anything that's not an accuracy. What you're doing is you're setting the expectation. Because, you know, when someone knows...
Hey, how are you today?
Good, how are you? Thanks. When you know you're going to be asked to run a mile when you get somewhere, you may not love it, but you knew, right? So you treat it differently than if you show up and you're not prepared for that, and all of a sudden you got to go run. Now you're really not going to be happy. So a lot of things, whether it's working with buyers or sellers, we have to be preparing them using certain language. One of the specifics we trained on recently was repairs negotiation. And if you are in real estate, you know what a hairy time that is. So one of the things we talk to our agents about is the wording we use, whether our client is the seller or the buyer. If our client is the seller, we have to be letting them know, yes, in Texas, the buyer said they are buying the house as is, but that just means as is until they get inspection. And that's not because they're being tricky or deceptive, because you have to set the tone up front of having them like each other. I find a lot of agents buying into wanting the two sides not like each other. Well, a side's going to walk out of a deal if they aren't getting along. So what you're telling a seller up front, which is true, is they're not saying as is right now to fool you. They're saying as is because look at the contract. They have two choices. In Texas, they can either tick as is or they can tick. So they have two choices. Of course, they have to say as is for now, and that's why they bought an option period. So say in almost every case, they come back and ask for repairs. It'd be shocking if they don't, okay? The only time they don't is if the price is fantastic, it's only been on the market a few days, and they're getting more than one offer. Other than that, they'll be asking for repairs, so just be prepared for that. So then, on the buyer side, the kind of language we want to use with our buyers is you're having an inspection done. You're paying an inspector to find things. He will find things. That is his job. I even like to take an inspection report from a brand new home with all the details marked out of the names of every one of the addresses, plop it on the table, and say, guess what? This house has never even been lived in. Take a look at this. He found things on this one. He will find things on yours, because sellers get emotionally involved and get their feelings hurt a little bit if someone says something bad about their house. It's like, how dare they? My house is nice. So I like to tell people, I was like, you know, I promise you, I love my house. I think my house is in great condition. I promise you, if I paid Jim to come over and inspect it, he's going to find a 40-page document. He just is. So it's all setting these expectations. So with the buyer, I want to be telling them he will find things, I promise you, on a new house and certainly on an old house. So what I want us to be able to do is keep it in perspective. So I like to use wording like, I'm not ever going to pressure you that you should or shouldn't ask for certain repairs, and we're going to do what you feel comfortable with. But let's just keep everything in perspective. So as long as you're empowering people with those words, because they look to us for that kind of advice and help, right? They want to know what we think about it. So I've been able to go through in the past and find the exact same wording in some of the inspection reports we get back, and that's not anything wrong. It doesn't mean the inspector's doing anything wrong. It's just something commonly wrong with most houses. I don't know where you live, but I'd like to hear what some of the things y'all hear on every single report are, but let me tell you what we hear in our end. And again, I think this applies far outside of real estate as well. You know, similar situations in your business where your wording is what sets up whether or not the deal succeeds or fails, right? The prep talk that you're doing. So we often get something in our reports that'll say you need to grade the dirt away from the house. You don't want flower beds built up and, you know, things, I guess, that could impact the foundation, wood rot, what have you. I don't recall ever seeing around here an inspection report that didn't have that in it. So if I have shown that in, again, blanked out, but highlighted different areas in 2, 3, 4 reports before my buyer sees it, it's not that he can't ask for something to be done about it. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But if I prepped him, he can put it in perspective, how important it actually is. I can say, I'm not telling you it is or isn't important, but I'm telling you whichever house we buy here in Fredericksburg, this is going to be in the report. So make your decision accordingly. I had one recently where it said time to prep, seal, and paint on some of the trim. And I was like, you know, every wooden house could almost say that. My house I consider to be in good condition. I promise you can find things we should repaint. So I pull out some reports, and literally the very, very specific little colloquial terms, time to prep, seal, and paint, was in every one. So if I've shown my buyer that up front, and I said, look, this house has some wood trim on it, there's a very good chance he's going to tell us it's time to prep, seal, and paint. See, I'm setting the tone of, not that we can't have those things fixed, depending if we're paying top dollar and there's not a huge amount of demand for the house, sure, we can get it fixed. But what I do want is the deal not to fall apart because I haven't prepped. I haven't told him, it will say this. Now let's decide what we do about it, but it will say it, okay? And it changes the tone, it changes the conversation, it changes how relaxed they are. So there's 2 reasons that we don't achieve our goals, right? Number 1, we don't have the education and or tools, training and scripts, which are so important. And if you're not on a team that provides that for you, let me know, because we need to do something about that. Number 2 is the actions, taking the right actions. So since I'm at the office, you know the deal. We got to call it right here. So tomorrow it's going to be, why are you not taking the actions you know you should be taking? Talk to y'all then. Go out there and crush it. Love y'all.